Disclaimer. Before we get into it, everything you hear on this show is based on real experience, real deals, real decisions, real outcomes. But it is not advice for your situation. Real estate and investment decisions carry risk. What worked for us may not work for you. Talk to your attorney, your CPA, your financial advisor. Know your numbers before you move. Now let's get into it.
Right. So thanks for joining us today on Building the Builder. And today I have a friend of mine that I've known for a few years now. And he's working in the development space and doing some fun projects. And so I am excited to be here with Brandon. Is specifically working a lot out in the Inland Empire. And he has a pretty similar pedigree to myself. And so, anyways, why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about where you're located and what kind of projects you're working on right now?
Sure. So I'm here in the IE, born and raised here in the Loma Linda, Redlands, Grand Terrace area. Currently live in Redlands and operate my have a real estate brokerage here in Redlands, and then I've been working in the ADU area for probably the last 6-7 years now, in the development area, and I kind of like to focus where I do a lot of my business. So Redlands, Loma Linda, Grand Terrace, Colton, so I know it's some cities are more friendly than others. So
Yeah.
Redlands is fortunately a pretty friendly city as far as micro development and ADUs go. So that's kind of where I've done a lot, and also Loma Linda as well. So
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And so tell us about your business. Like, how did you step into micro development?
So I first got into it. I started reading like the laws and the bills that started coming out probably 2016, 17, 18. And then my wife and I were looking for a bigger home with a yard for our girls in 2019. And so I knew kind of what the ADU laws, kind of the general laws were kind of stating, what you could do with a property and ADU potential. So I started searching, and I was looking for a home that had, most properties, of course, didn't have ADUs back then, but at least had some sort of bonus room or addition, that could be converted into an ADU. So we found a property in Redlands that was really nice, and it had a detached garage and already a bonus room above the garage. And I was like, this could be good, because then I could just add a kitchen, and already had a bathroom, and just turn it into an ADU. So that was in 2019 when I did my first one at our own personal residence, because I knew that if I did an ADU, it could help cover our mortgage, because we were kind of doing a big step up in a mortgage, going from a smaller single floor to a 2-story on a larger lot. So that's kind of my first experience with ADU. I made the mistake, though, of filing my plans at the end of 2019, not knowing that in 2020 the law was changing to where you didn't have to pay impact fees. So I had to pay some impact fees, but it all worked out in the end. So that was my first introduction to ADUs. So
Yeah, and I know this about you, and I could talk about that in the introduction, but you're a real estate broker as well, and so you have a really great look into the world of really like where the deals come from, but then also what product is desired and needed out in the market. How has that affected your decision making and the kinds of projects that you've started with and been attracted to?
Yeah, so obviously we know California's in a huge housing shortage. There's not enough homes or even, starter homes available really out there. And so the ADU law, I think, is a huge, huge benefit for the state and for people that are looking to add, multiple units on their property, or just looking for, a casita out back for, grandma or whatever, So there's really the huge need for, smaller homes and like starter homes, and like you get a huge fan of, micro development, is kind of the term being thrown out there now. And so there's just a huge need for that. And especially as more and more people are coming out to the inland areas from like Orange County, Los Angeles, even San Diego, as those areas are getting way more unaffordable, and the Inland Empire is, more affordable. So there's a concentration of, I think, more people coming out to this area. So there's definitely more homes that are needed in the starter, especially in the starter area, I would say.
Yeah, and would you say that like your business um, on your brokerage side has kind of like shown that need to you in a disproportionate way or something?
Yeah, it really is, because I kind of work here in the, Redlands, Loma Linda area, and there's a lot of, students, young professionals that are coming. Maybe they're going to residency here at the Loma Linda Hospital, or coming here for, an internship, and then maybe staying around after that. So it's really a need, especially for the younger generation, that's really just starting out, and they're just finishing up their medical or dental or whatever professional degree they're getting, and they're wanting to stay in the area, but housing is so unaffordable and plus you add on top of that student loans, and so
Yeah.
it's like, if there's a way to get people into, starter homes, or just, smaller homes to start with, because even a lot of these new builders, they're just building these big, massive homes, and it's like, I can see why they're doing that, because, they can't really make a large profit on, smaller starter homes. But if there's a way we can kind of infill and really get a lot of these smaller units out there, I think it would be a huge benefit, and really be, a place where people could stay, instead of, coming here for school, getting their degree, their fellowships, their residencies,
Yeah.
but then having to leave the state because they can't afford to live here. So
Yeah. No, I see that. I see that deeply. One of the things that I have heard that like really resonates me is the most whole communities are the communities where you can do every phase of life in that community, right? So it's your first home, it's your move up home, it's the
right,
luxury home or the home that you raise your family in. And then you can downsize within your same community, like as you enter different stages of life. And back to what you said about the builders, what they're building, like it makes sense. Like when I look at my own business and then I also look at cities and I look at big builders, it's like it's all about alignment of incentive. And
mhm,
so like are they incented by the time they have to go through all the impact fees and all the streets and things that they have to put in, are they incented to build tiny homes? Can they actually even financially make it work?
right,
Probably not. And
yeah,
so that's what the state has done with these laws is they put us into a position where the cities now have to accept an
right,
alignment of incentives for us to be building. You talked about the avoidance of impact fees. Well, the avoidance of impact fee portion works if you're under a certain square footage, right?
right, right,
And so they're incenting us as a state to build smaller units by doing that.
right,
So, but yeah, I mean, specifically Loma Linda, where you've got the school, but you
right,
also have Loma Linda University Hospital, which is massive,
right,
and you've got the VA there.
right,
Like the amount of different transitional life change housing that needs to be there. Transitional housing may not be the best phrasing for it, but
Right.
it's like if I'm only needing to live in a house for 5 years before I get my massive paycheck, like it's very beneficial to have that option there locally.
Right.
And then you get the service of those people to that community. The schools see it, that like all those different things that happen in thriving communities, like having a soccer coach, like having somebody to be able to go down the street and take grandma her dinner or whatever.
Right.
Like those kinds of things can exist in markets and situations where we do actually have the options to build the kind of housing that's needed. So I
Yeah.
love that. And so on this podcast specifically, like our goal is to talk not just about the development itself, but the thought process of building the builder and like the challenges. Like each project when we finish it, like it does two things, right? It builds this unit that we're creating, but it also helps build us and our experience.
Mhm.
And like typically there's challenges that we go through in that process that are those lessons that help us build ourselves. And so is like now you've been doing this for a few years and you've got a lot of projects under your belt. Like, was there a project that kind of forced you to take a look at this a little bit deeper and say, hey, I'm becoming a serious operator. This is now my thing?
Yeah. Well, yeah, interesting because after I did my first one at our personal residence, then I was like, this is kind of cool. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to go out and try to find, these projects and do them on my own and maybe find a way to flip them or sell them or whatever, or create multi-unit and then sell them to an investor. So it was 2022. The market was kind of coming off a hot streak, from COVID, and then right in like mid to end of 2022, starting to cool down a little bit because interest rates were going up, and so I found a project, what I thought was a decent project in Loma Linda, to where I bought a two-story large home, about 2,400 square feet. Uh, let's see, it's 3 bed, 2.5 bath, and kind of nice part of Loma Linda, close to the hills. And so I thought, okay, this could be something good to where I could get in. It had a 3-car garage. I could turn that into a 1-bed ADU, and then there was a living area kind of off to the side of the home that I thought, okay, I could section that off and make it what at the time on my plans I called it a master suite, because if I did the junior ADU, I didn't know this at the time, but you had to had the owner occupancy requirement, and so I bought the property and got my plans done, going into construction, and then I'm kind of realizing during construction, I'm like, oh, I kind of gotta soundproof this because there's going to be multi-families living in this large single family home, and so I ended up doing double walls around the living area for the little studio that I was making, and then another double wall in the garage to make it kind of more soundproof for the ADU. So my expenses went up a little bit. And then I was thinking on resale, I was like, okay, well, I bought this at 660, which at the time was not too bad, but it's still maybe a little bit higher. And as I've gone along, I've learned, try to buy in the 500s is probably kind of the sweet spot or less. And so if I put around, I think 175 to 200 into it, I'm at 660 plus my loan costs, my hard money costs, around 10%. So that's, I'm putting, 760, 860, close to 900 or more. And I'm like, man, if my sales price is going to be under $1 million, like 950 or so, I'm not going to really make much on this. And so I talked to my wife about it, and we're like, okay, well, we just bought our dream home in Redlands, but we still have our starter home in Loma Linda that we first bought. Why don't we sell that? Because our tenants are moving out of our first home in Loma Linda. Then we could roll that money from our equity of our first home and just get a bigger loan, and then just keep this multi-unit property in Loma Linda, and then use that as an investment property. So I was like, huh. I talked to my wife about it, and we thought that would be a good option. And so that's what we did. So it kind of saved me to where I didn't have to sell, repay my hard money, and do all that, and maybe make a little money, but maybe not too much, break even. But I kind of learned from that experience. I was like, it turned out okay, because we ended up selling our first home and using the equity, and then putting it down on our refinance on this triplex when we were done. And we still have it, and it comes in, pretty good as far as rental income. But that was kind of a learning lesson, and I did it all on my own. Like, I was just kind of self-taught, as you could say, and just reading stuff on my own. But and then probably maybe a year and a half after that is when I met up with you guys. I kind of learned about your program I went to an ADU academy and got the ADU designation through the ADU academy. And then they were talking about you guys, the triplex millionaires. And so I was like, hey, that's kind of cool. Let me find out about these guys. And so that's how I kind of got connected in with you guys then, and learned definitely a lot more from that point.
Yeah. So I want to ask you back to that story a little bit. So going through that circumstance where you figured out, like, oh crap, I'm not going to be able to sell and really make money on this, or not what I wanted, but I could keep it. So when I look at that, like, how has that changed the way that you operate now? Like, you reference price point a little bit, but just in general, like, what did you learn from that experience?
Yeah. So I think, well, probably like you said, one of the biggest factors is price point, and then you really got to know your construction costs, and really zero in on what that's going to be, and then, if you are going to be paying, in this case, I did have to pay some impact fee. Well, actually, no, it was school fees, which can also, be a chunk as well, in addition to your impact fees. So price point, knowing your fees through the city, knowing if you're going to have to pay impact, school fees, all of that. And then really calculating, like, okay, in my case, I was taking out a hard money loan, and I'm paying interest on that every month. And then the longer my project goes on, the more and more I'm paying interest. And it's like, wow, this really adds up. So that's probably the biggest shocker, is the interest you're paying each month, on the delays that your project, takes. And you get a hiccup, and then you gotta, go back to the drawing board. Like, I ended up doing double walls, which I'm glad I did, but then that caused the project to kind of slow down a little bit. So
Yeah. And so do you have now, like, a different like system that you run when you're looking for projects, or is there a process that was born out of that experience?
yeah, so I think out of that experience, I was like, okay, we were able to make it through there because we sold the house, and then I could refinance out of my hard money and just keep that project. So I didn't have to end up selling that 3-unit project. So I was like, okay, I really enjoyed what I did, and I enjoyed creating the multi-units out of one single family home, but I got to kind of really zero in and be a little more careful on the next one, and, like, probably even try to seek out, some knowledge from some other professionals in the industry, because I was just kind of just going off on my own and doing my own thing, and not really, I didn't know anybody at that time, who else was doing this, because this was 2022, which, so everything was kind of getting going with the ADU stuff and with the impact, zero impact fees under 750 square feet and all of that.
Yeah.
So luckily I did that, found out about the ADU Academy, got that designation, and then I found out about you guys and signed up with you with your course and really learned a whole lot of a wealth of knowledge as far as ADUs and, the ADU model, like detached, attached, conversion, junior ADU, how to avoid impact fees, how to, build multiple ADUs on a property, so it's just created a wealth of knowledge. And then just now in my new project I'm working on in Redlands, I'm doing your plan, your 3-bed, 2-bath, 748 square foot, ADU in the backyard. So it's just, I don't think I'd be where I am today without, meeting up with you guys and learning the whole process and, avoiding some of those extra pain points, that I probably would have gone through by just learning from you guys,
Yeah, I mean, I love something that Mr. B says, and he says that consultancy is a cheat code. And like, when he went to build his chocolate brand that was, child free or child labor free, like he just went to the biggest company that was doing that same thing and paid him to learn. And so now Feastables has become pretty big, but that thought process, like, I we learn so much from all sorts of different developers, and so, but that is why we created the community, because we did know that there were a lot of people that were like us. The amount of failures that we have, like the dead bodies that we have on the road, um, to success, like it's a real thing. But so, I mean, I think it's amazing to to move into a spot where you're like, hey, let's collaborate and figure out from other people that have already taken a lot of the hits that I'm looking to take. So
All right.
right now, Brandon, like, what would you say as you're continuing to grow and look at additional projects? Like, what's an operational friction for you that's kind of slowing you down from, progressing?
Yeah. So, I feel like I have, a lot of the knowledge now to know about, kind of the ins and outs of the ADU laws, and now with the, SB 9 and the SB 1123 or SB 684 or whatever, there's a lot more that you can do just besides, just building 1 or 2 ADUs. There's a whole new ball game out there that you can do basically with, 10 unit developments and all that. So
Yeah.
I think, as I go, obviously I don't want to get, too far ahead of myself, but I kind of, going through the process. I've done the triplex now, and then I did one last year, another triplex where I ended up flipping it and I made a decent profit. So that was kind of
Yeah.
my first flip with a triplex. And then now I'm doing a detached ADU ground up in the backyard, and that'll be my first, detached ground up unit. And my plan is to try to the SB 9, or maybe even down the road, potentially a 10 unit development. But at this point, I think the biggest constraints that I'm dealing with are financial constraints, because I'm taking out hard money, and so I'm, paying interest on all my projects, and so financially it's just a little bit of a hard to. I can't really do more than one at a time at this point, and maybe,
Right.
Down the road, if there's potential for doing more than one, maybe partnering up with other investors, or doing, a multi, unit, 10 unit with, multiple partners or whatever. I could see that as being a potential, but
Yeah.
at this point I'm kind of stuck to one at a time at this point.
Yeah. And so right now, like capital access seems to be the big friction point.
Yeah, capital, definitely, I would say. Because I see these properties like, man, I see the potential there, but
Right.
I can't access, really at this point more than one at a time, it seems like.
Yeah, no, I totally feel that. I I know that one of the things that's been a friction point for me as we've been growing is it's like I find the deal and get the capital as
Right.
opposed to having capital sitting then go find a deal. And it's fine like to do it that way if I have because I can always go out and make the resource like and figure it out. The issue with that is it's a much more stressful way to live, you know,
Yeah.
where you're like always hustling for more money. And even though like there's whether there's a large pipeline or not, and so it causes more stress on the team and stretching people thin. And so like we're in the transition of um, I mean, we've transitioned. We're no longer doing that. Like, you can show me the best deal in the world, and unless I have the capital that's ready to allocate to it, I'm like, that's awesome. I think this guy or that guy or that guy would want to do it. Um, because, we, we've gotten to that portion of the business where um, we're now like, hey, the systems need to function. The deal will meet the system instead of the, uh, system trying to meet a deal. And so it's kind of a different thought process. But one of the things that I do like to push into, and like I found this deeply with myself, but is the thought process of how becoming a micro developer and moving into these projects, how it's changed you personally, like how it's been a help to you as a person.
Yeah, it's just been like, I don't know, it fires off like dopamine, or it gives me like kind of like like a natural high, just to like, in my mind, create something out of, nothing, really like envision what a potential project or ADU project or whatever could look like, that maybe someone else could say, hey, that's great, but I have no idea how to do that. So I know the processes, the ins and outs, how to get my plans approved in a timely manner, how to, you know, work with different contractors and get stuff done quickly. I've worked with your guys' contractors, and they're, on the point. They're not messing around. They're getting stuff done, as fast as possible. So it's just a matter of, knowing the ins and outs. I kind of know people at the cities I work with now. I know the planners, I know the some of the building inspectors. So it's good to have those relationships. So you kind of know what they're looking for as well. And then just talking with you guys, like, because you guys have done a lot, like in volume, what I'm doing. And so it's like, if you've done the volume, you guys already put in the legwork and the hard work to where I could learn from, your successes and also failures, to where, you can kind of guide or recommend along the way, like, hey, this is
Yeah.
what might work, or what the next step would be. So
How would you say that it's affected you, like from a beliefs standpoint?
yeah, so like I'm a huge believer in, ADUs and micro development. And like, I think, honestly, I think the game changer in California is going to be when, I know it's already a state law, but once it becomes mandatory that the state um, says you have to opt into condoization as
Yeah.
far as the cities go. And so that if that, that med student, that young professional that just started out, and they want to stay here and build a business or a practice, but they also want to buy, hey, why not buy an ADU and then start out small and then grow from there? So I think I'm a huge advocate, and I can't wait until the condoization becomes a state mandate to where anybody could buy an ADU, and get started, building equity in California. So
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. One of the, I guess, probably the last thing that I'll really push into here with you though is, from a personal standpoint about what you now believe about yourself. Like, has it changed anything for you in the way that you view yourself or your abilities or anything in that range?
Yeah, I feel more confident. Like I've done a few of these projects now to where I feel more confident. I feel like I can look at a property and know what the potential could be, or how to maximize the potential or the value or the rental income on a specific property, in a single family neighborhood. So I feel like I can do that on my own. I don't have to have somebody looking over my shoulder or a mentor or whatever. So I feel confident in myself, and it goes along with, my real estate career, kind of starting out just as a real estate salesperson and getting my broker's license, starting my own brokerage, and then kind of feeling confident with that. And now I'm, feeling confident with ADUs and, conversions. And as I do more, now I'm going to hopefully feel more confident with, ground up construction and building, detached units. And so it just increases the confidence level. And I feel good about what I'm doing, because I feel like, I'm doing a good thing out there in the community. Housing is needed and we need more. So I think it's necessary. And I know there's the people that push back, but I think it's the future. If we're going to continue to live and stay here in California, this is what's going to have to happen. So
yeah, for sure. No, and one of the things that, I mean, I've gone through a similar progression, and gaining that additional confidence. But one of the things that I have found very rewarding for myself is I used to drive by houses that I had flipped. I'm like, oh, well, that was pretty, or it was ugly, but now it's pretty. Like, and somebody, but there's a different thing when you have actually created additional units. Like, there's
right,
more places for people to live. Like, it's hard to express the benefit that gave to me. But then the other thing that really hit for me is the opportunity of expansion. I was always searching for that one special deal.
right,
And now we're in the position where it's like, oh, it's not the deal, it's the system,
right,
it's the law, it's the opportunity, it's the need. And like this very expansive vision of what can be done, and still getting the ability to serve that purpose. And so now when I drive by and I see units that have been created, that's a completely different thought. And so,
yeah.
anyways,
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I'm on the same wavelength as you are. Like I get excited about just seeing, listings pop up that have ADUs. I'm like, wow, that's cool. I wonder what they did with their project, I'm like
yeah,
excited about how they created more housing, so.
yeah. No, it is definitely, it does hit that, uh, it hits that dopamine for sure. Like the creation and being able to go out and do something, take something and either convert it into something better, and or like just completely ground up something didn't exist there before and now it's there.
Right.
That's a lot of fun.
It's a
So,
lot of fun. Like entrepreneurial, like really just
oh, for
being
sure.
entrepreneurial, we can call ourselves developers, and it's like, wow, to be a developer, that's like huge,
Well, and really, like I was saying before, it's like instead of having to go out and search for this perfect special deal, now it's like you can go out and create the deal.
Right.
And that thought process is so expansive that it's like, well, if Brandon wants to do 5 projects a year, 10 projects a year, the question isn't whether or not it can be done. It's how do we build ourselves to the point that we are capable of doing that. And so much of it is right here.
Right.
Like that's a massive thing, but the confidence that you have to do something today, like that you didn't have as much. You took a leap. You stepped into the darkness in order to do this, like not knowing exactly what was going to happen next. But because you've done that multiple times and because you put into yourself and learned and built relationships, like those are the things that have built you into the person that now is looking for the next bigger project,
Right.
but still doing it in a way that you feel confident. And so I love it. Well, Brandon, I appreciate you so much taking the time and spending time talking about your journey into development. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what you're going to do over the next little bit because, I know that your last project that you had some pretty good success on your flip. I know that you're going to repeat that quite a bit. And one of the things that I think is going to be that's fun for me is when I start realizing like the multiples that can be made by doing the same thing over and over.
Right.
And it's fun to watch you starting to step into that. And it's like, well, shoot, if I just do 4 of these instead of what I was doing before, I just replace that income so I don't even have to flip anymore.
Right.
I'm like, that's even funner,
Right. Right.
And so I do appreciate watching you over the last few years and getting to know you and being on that journey somewhat with you. But thank you for sharing your story with us.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys as well and the wealth of knowledge that you guys provide and the availability. And yeah, it's been great. I don't think I'd be where I'm at today without, being a part of your program as well. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, we'll catch you again, and thanks for joining us on Building the Builder.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
One last thing before you go. This show covers real estate development, middle housing, and investment strategy. All of it is based on real experience. None of it is personalized advice. Every deal, every market, every capital structure is different. Consult a licensed professional before making any financial or investment decision. Real estate investing involves risk, including loss of capital. We share what we know. You decide what to do with it. See you on next episode.